Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're bypassing the usual agenda because we are jumping straight into an absolutely epic, chronological, historical narrative. We're going to explore the origins of Islam and chart out the incredible events that unfolded in ancient Arabia. So, here is the big question. How did a solitary shepherd transform a completely lawless desert city into the center of a global faith? I mean, think about it. It's honestly one of the most massive historical pivots in all of human history. Okay, let's dive into this and transport ourselves back in time to find out exactly how it happened. Section 1, Lawless Mecca and Early Life. All right, picture the year 570. This is roughly when our story kicks off in the Arabian city of Mecca. Now, Mecca was a vitally important place for two big reasons. First off, it housed the Kaaba, which was a very ancient temple. And second, it's the city where Muhammad was born. But you have to understand, back then, Mecca was basically the Wild West. It was essentially lawless. To survive, you absolutely needed backup. The city was run by these ruthless, powerful families who just did pretty much whatever they wanted. And that ancient Kaaba temple, it was literally overflowing with 360 different physical idols. But then, in stark contrast to all of that, you have Muhammad. He had incredibly vulnerable beginnings. He was a poor orphan. His father actually died before he was even born, and his mother passed away when he was only 6. Yet, despite growing up in a city that was entirely obsessed with idol worship, he held on to this firm monotheistic belief in just one unseen God, Allah, which aligned a lot more with Jewish and Christian traditions at the time. Section 2. The Cave and the Message. So, Muhammad grows up, works as a shepherd, and eventually becomes this highly successful, deeply trusted businessman. He ends up marrying a wealthy widow named Khadijah. But, he really couldn't stand Mecca's culture. He especially disliked the annual parties and sacrifices they made to the idols during the month of Ramadan. So, to escape the whole scene, he would go and isolate himself in a mountain cave. And according to the traditional narrative, it was during one of these retreats that an angel, Jibril, or Gabriel, suddenly appears to him. Just imagine the sheer, overwhelming shock of that moment. The angel commands him to read, delivering this profound message. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a drop of blood. He who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know. Now, the angel commanded him to read, but here's the catch. Muhammad couldn't actually read or write. I mean, there were no schools for him growing up, so the angel made him learn the words off by heart. And that is exactly why the holy book is called the Quran, which literally translates to recitation. These were spoken messages from God, or Allah, that Muhammad then recited out loud to his followers, and they were the ones who wrote them down. Years later, the whole collection was compiled into what we now know as the Quran. Section 3. Persecution and Miraculous Journeys. Well, as you might guess, when Muhammad brought this radical new message of fairness and a single God down from the mountain, the reaction in Mecca was explosive. To really get why the backlash was so fierce, we have to look at the language. Islam means obedience to Allah, and a Muslim is someone who obeys Allah. The ruling families of Mecca? Yeah, they liked things exactly the way they were. They absolutely did not want the people obeying anyone but them. So this new message was a direct threat to their entire power structure. Because of this, the early Muslims faced terrible persecution. They were tortured, and tragically, some were killed. It got so incredibly bad that a few managed to escape across the sea to Abyssinia, which is modern-day Ethiopia, just to find a safe haven. During all this intense persecution, Muhammad also suffered the devastating loss of his wife Khadijah, as well as his protective uncle. He was at an incredibly low point, truly rock bottom. And it's right here that the traditional narrative describes the night journey. The story goes that he's taken from Mecca to Jerusalem on a winged horse named Al-Buraq, then ascends to the heavens to speak with past prophets, and is given the instruction for Muslims to pray 5 times a day before being brought back to Mecca. And this brilliantly illustrates how, regardless of whether scholars debate it as a physical journey or a profound vision, it provided a massive, deeply needed boost of spiritual morale right when times were incredibly dark. Section 4. The Migration to Medina. Eventually, the situation in Mecca became completely untenable. They couldn't stay. Fortunately, the people of another city, Yathrib, had heard about Muhammad's message and actually invited him and his followers to come join them.
This journey is so foundational to the story that it has its own special term, the Hijra. It simply means migration, and it refers specifically to this highly perilous escape across the desert to get away from the ruling families.
And those ruling families definitely did not want Muhammad to leave. In fact, they sent 7 assassins to end his life in his sleep. But Muhammad was tipped off and managed to slip away. Of course, the families then sent expert trackers to hunt him down. So Muhammad and his close friend Abu Bakr had to hide in a cave. According to the famous story, the trackers found the cave, but they didn't even bother going inside to search it. Why? Because a spider had spun a web right over the entrance and a bird was nesting right there. To the trackers, that undisturbed nature meant absolutely no human could have recently gone inside. So a spider and a bird literally saved their lives. Because they managed to evade capture, they made it safely to their destination. And the city of Yathrib was so transformed by their arrival that it was actually renamed Medina al-Nabi, which means the city of the prophet. Today, most people just call it Medina. This marked a brand new chapter, a place of safety. But, as we'll see, that safety was going to be tested very soon. Section 5. Battles and the Return. Yeah, the Meccans were not ready to just let this go, so Muhammad's worries were far from over. The struggle for survival was intense, and it went back and forth. First up was the Battle of Badr. This was an astounding event where just 313 Muslims miraculously defeated a much, much larger force of 1,000 Meccan soldiers. Next came the Battle of Uhud, which, well, actually, that was a harsh defeat. Some of the Muslim fighters disobeyed orders. They broke ranks to raid the Meccan camp and ended up getting completely outmaneuvered. Finally, there was the Battle of the Trench. The Meccans tried to lay siege to Medina, so the Muslims dug this massive defensive trench. But ultimately, the weather intervened. Pouring rain and howling winds absolutely destroyed the Meccan camp, forcing them to abandon the siege entirely. After those brutal battles, they signed a peace treaty at a place called Hudaybiyah. But, surprise, surprise, it wasn't long before the Meccans broke it. Meanwhile, local tribes had been flocking to join the Muslims, so Muhammad decided enough was enough. He marched back across the desert toward Mecca, but this time with an overwhelming force of over 10,000 men. I mean, that is an absolute and undeniable shift in power. Seeing this massive army roll up, the ruling families realized they had made a colossal mistake. But here's the twist. Instead of exacting a bloody revenge, Muhammad enacted a peaceful takeover. The Meccans surrendered without a fight. Muhammad rode straight to the Kaaba, circled it 7 times anti-clockwise, and then physically smashed every single one of those 360 idols, completely rededicating the ancient temple solely to Allah. So the crucial point is, how does this historical climax translate to the visual culture of the religion today? Like, why are there no pictures of Muhammad or Allah? Well, the answer is directly tied to the smashing of those 360 idols. The absolute foundational tenet here is a total focus on the one unseen God. The early Muslims wanted to absolutely prevent anyone from treating Muhammad as an idol himself. Drawing his picture ran the very real risk that people might start worshiping the image instead of focusing on the message. Furthermore, they hold this deep theological belief that Allah is like nothing on earth, which makes any physical depiction not only impossible, but it totally misses the point. Which brings us to our final, lingering thought for this explainer. How does the story of one man's rejection of physical idols continue to shape the spiritual and visual world of billions of people today? It is such a fascinating narrative of unwavering belief, survival, and a profound cultural shift that still echoes so clearly in our modern era. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.